Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are revising our set 2 tier list. I am not alone today. We have James and Corie from Northeast Kais. These are my team up in the northeast of England. Corie, very solid Masters player. You were a green dedicated player. You were green through set 1 for
Indeed,
Fusion Worlds.
indeed.
Unfortunately, you've dropped green. You're now on Topu train like everybody else.
Shock.
Horrible. And James, he is big time Masters player. People will know him for his cooler mill. Top 16 at Nats for Masters just in December. And at Birmingham a week and a half ago, I believe it was, you got 6th place. It was a set 1 meta, but congratulations on the 1st place. Sorry, 6th place. Getting
Thank
yourself
you.
that nice Goku card, you know, the serial code. Ooh. What was the code? What
Yeah.
was the number you got again? Was it 15?
It's 15.
Oh,
Nice
yes.
low number.
Very low number. It could be the lowest I've actually seen so far, you know. But yeah, so this is going to be just general discussion. We are going to do a tier list, but we're also going to just discuss our thoughts on the game and what we will probably. I'm going to say we'll discuss the upcoming. I'm air quoting ban list because they haven't officially announced that it's a ban list or that there's going to be any changes. They've obviously just said that they're going to review the game and then get back to us, but. We'll talk about it as if it's going to be a ban list or if there's going to be an errata list or some form. So we'll just have a quick discussion on that as well. But we'll do that towards the end. We'll go through the tier list first. We'll try and get through this as quickly as I can. Every time I say this on a tier list, the video goes on for about an hour. It's crazy. So we're going to start. That's true. That's very true. But we are going to start with the starter deck leaders. So we're going to go with Broly, and I think it's only fair to start with Corie on this one since he was the Broly main for our locals.
Yeah.
Well, there were a lot of other people who were playing Broly, but just starter decks.
No, that's true. But you were the main boy, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Like, okay, right. So my opinion on this is set 1 would have been tier 0 in my opinion. Like, if we're going off of this tier, this tier list as is, it would have been top of the table. Unfortunately, moving into the set 2 meta, we have seen a massive decrease in Broly, obviously because of Topu and other red decks alike. And just unfortunately, it's too slow of a deck. I think the color in general now is just quite slow. It can't really keep up with the pace that other decks are now like being able to just like spam out all their stuff. At the moment, Broly, in my opinion, is probably going to be I would say around the rogue level.
I would agree.
Moment. Yeah.
I would agree with Broly being rogue. I think if there are any green decks, I think the only green deck I could actually see topping events, there's 2 of them. And for me, it's Androids and Cell.
The only one I've seen popping.
Yeah, I realised. Yeah, I realised what I said there. But
Yeah.
the only green decks I could see topping would be Androids and Cell. I think that Androids and Cell are quicker on the ramp, and they are more efficient at. If you're playing the 8-drop Cell in either of those builds, you're far more efficient at regaining that energy back. And it means you can kind of do it turn after turn. But I agree. I think Broly would be rogue, unless you would disagree, James.
Yeah, I would put it locals.
You would put it
There's
locals far
nothing-
down.
Yeah, there's nothing rogue about it. Everyone knows what Broly does. It didn't exactly get any new tools.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the survivability that it used to have. And I agree. I think Cell's the best green deck. And it just slaps it. Like, Broly to be rogue would have to make dodge all of the red decks in an 8-round tournament to even consider being higher than locals for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me personally, it's Rogue, just because obviously I'm attached to the color, I'm attached to the character. But I would say it's probably high locals, bottom Rogue, if there was like some way of like putting that in that kind of like category.
I'd be happy with the bottom rogue.
Yeah, I feel like for me it would personally be bottom Rogue.
That's what I would say. I would say bottom rogue or top of locals, I think.
Yeah, I just feel like the only reason why it would be Rogue is if someone just comes with like an out of the box type of build, like they just completely sack off the entire like ramp strategy. They just purely play it because it's 25k leader. You go like low to the ground or something like that. They might just catch people off guard in that case. But yeah, other than that, Broly at the moment is just kind of a
Yeah, it's
Out
nowhere
of the
near
way.
the demon it was.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to Frieza, and James, I'm going to give you
Mm-hmm.
this one. You played quite a bit of Frieza in set 1.
Yep.
What do you think is... we're obviously going to talk about yellow as a colour as a whole, but Frieza in particular, where do you think that is in set 2?
Locals.
Logos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because essentially it is getting gear kept by Red again. And the whole restanding its battle cards isn't that good of a gimmick if, like, Red wants to swing its face,
Yes.
but also it wants to be able to tackle the board if it can. And if you're restanding your battle cards, the only option Red has is to swing its face. So it's really hard to manage that in the freezer.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I mean?
agree. I actually think restanding the battle cards, especially in this format, is actually a detriment.
Yeah.
To an extent, it doesn't actually help the leader, so to speak. Obviously, once you get to things like your coolers and stuff, you know, you're getting to restand your cooler and have it as a blocker, etc. is always nice, but Red has so many tools now where it can just neg your card down, even from 30. Like, even if I just tap 2 and I just... Because God Kamehameha has, again, it's a very valid card. I said this through all of set 1, I love that card. But it's too... I still think it's very good into, again, when you're looking at the card itself, it's very good into the red match, and it's also very, very good into the yellow match. Which means that it's just, I just don't see the survivability in Frieza this set. I think, I hoped, and when we saw obviously the reveals, yellow looked super, super good. It looked like it was in a great position. You know, when you look at the new Goku reveal, even the Vegeta, for example, the Vegeta essentially is just a Qui for the entire colour. Meaning that Broly or any green deck just couldn't use their skills to kill your battle cards. And then obviously Topu, everybody saw what Topu was doing. It was like, oh yeah, no, this is just not gonna work, especially for yellow.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I agree. Corie, do you think locals?
Yeah, I kind of have the same mindset with Frieza as I do with Broly. I think all the starter deck ones, they're kind of like roughly in the same area for me. Like with very high locals and probably bottom rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take over starter coup now.
Yeah.
Just because I
Yeah.
was kind of the red player of set 1. Obviously, I'm now no longer a red player. Sold my lovely collection to James. For what it was worth at the time, I was just like, yeah, I just can't play red anymore. I'm looking forward to playing blue. So, but starter coup for me was probably, at least on the digital client, was probably my most played deck. I did play a fair amount of it at locals. I honestly could not replicate the success I had at locals that I had on digital, and it's probably because obviously we have a really good local scene. You know, between the three of us, between Kashi, NEK, you know, the people Jet, if they were ever playing, you know, we had a really high ceiling locals, I would say. And I don't think starter coup was ever getting me there, but I think in set 2, it's by far the worst of the red decks. It's by far. It's not even close.
No,
So-
yeah, I agree.
The problem is, though, is that it's still a red deck. So I can't, in good conscience, call it trash, but I will call it locals. Because it's a
I
red deck,
agree.
I can't call
Yeah.
it trash. I just can't. Not the way that red is currently. I can't bring myself to do that.
No, yeah.
But it
Yeah,
is definitely the worst of the red decks, for sure.
I agree. I agree. I think that's a fair and just
Yeah.
a fair position for it to be.
Cool. And then blue Vegeta. So we'll do this as like a group discussion before we place it anywhere. My
Yeah.
take is it will top events. 100%. It will top events, and it could even win an event, I would say. I think Vegeta's buff this set is absolutely wild. The Bulmas, the Gotenkses, for example, like that entire package, even the one-drop Goten that just bounces 2 or lesses, you know, like you now have so many great
Yeah.
targets for the 4-drop Gotenks as well. I genuinely think Vegeta will top events, 100%.
Yeah. I think that bracket should be called could top events, not will top events, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that then. Good top events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of messed
Is
with
it-
the... Actually, tell you what, we'll take off events. We'll just say could top. There you go.
Yeah.
I prefer
There
it
we go.
floating
Yeah,
in the middle.
Vegeta definitely could top an event.
I mean, it
I think-
already has, technically. It's done it
Yeah.
once, I think, in the US.
Oh, was it muskets? That's what do they call them?
I can't even know who was on it.
Names I'm not too familiar with. I'm bad with names.
I think it was the one non-Topu deck in the top 16, wasn't it, or something? It was close. It was something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was Musket.
Yeah,
however you see it now.
I do think that Vegeta blue in general got a massive spike. Like I would argue that out of all the colors, because red was still very good, it did get a massive spike for sure. But blue was arguably the worst of the colors, and it's now, if it's not on equal paring with red, it's slightly less. It's just not as. I think that the spike in power it got in set 2 is wild.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that the tools that blue has now, like going into set 2, is just far better than what it had in set 1. It's actually just increased the ceiling of all blue decks.
Yeah.
At the moment. It's got the top 2 treatment of just lifting every other like deck of that color into the next bracket tier, if you will. But obviously other decks are going to get more buffs based on the actual like support that the decks get. And because Vegeta was a pretty supported deck, obviously with all the small little Vegeta Bulma package things, it definitely has like high swings for like minimal value. And obviously we can't just rule out the peel off combo, the peel off loop, and everything, all that sort of just like really ridiculous numbers for very minimal energy. It very much feels similar to that of like a glimpse in a way.
Yeah, and what you've got to bear in mind as well is the one-drop Vegeta Vanilla. Because the Bulma just states any Vegeta, like the Bulma can buff the one-drop Vegeta to 25, and then you combo to 35, and then you leaders 35. Like, for 2 energy, I've had 2 35k swings. Like, come on, it's incredible. Like, those numbers are just really, really good. Obviously, it's a nightmare being 35 into what will arguably be a 20k format, but, you know, Topu drawing half their deck by turn 5. They're just, there's a super, there's a super, it's just on repeat. Okay, here we go.
Unless I'm playing Topu, if that deck hates me, by the way.
Yeah,
good.
You've not had the best of luck.
Good.
Anyway.
Cool, so we'll move on to green. We're going to the set 1 leaders before we move on to the set 2 leaders. So, I am going to put, for me personally, I would say Droids or Rogue. I think that they definitely could top. But
I think it's higher than Broly, definitely.
I think that they are. I think out of all of the Rogue decks, I would probably have the Droids at the top. There maybe the exception of like 1 or 2, but I think Droids is really, really strong. I
think when it comes to,
I think it's the only deck I've not played in the game in that Droids.
Really?
Yeah,
its capability to ramp. The 17-18 is so ridiculously strong that if Topu wasn't the issue, as in like if it wasn't the boogeyman, the gatekeeper as we call it, but when you get to like if you're on turn 3 and then use the ramp extra card, like you just get guaranteed on turn 4. You ramp with the field to go up to 5, and then you just put down double Android 17 and 18. You then go up to 7 with 4 inactive, or sorry, 3 inactive, something like that. Whatever the number is. But I'm like, you can really, really ramp this deck hard, and whatever you're paying in your energy. And again, for example, like your Cell 8 drop, for example, like when you're going from 8 to 5, you guarantee a ramp back to 6. If you have another androids, for example, in that turn, you're ramping up again. And the good thing that I like about the androids deck now compared to what it was, it is actually an aggressive deck because you're playing 20k battle cards. Fair enough, it's expensive, but I mean, I say that it's not really. You just need to be on 4 energy, and then it technically was a tap 1. It's ridiculously strong. I think that the androids are very, very good.
I agree.
Yeah. And then Gohan, do we have any takes on Gohan? Because honestly, I have no idea where I would put this.
For me personally, Gohan locals.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Gohan really. Like, other than the set 1 meta, I haven't seen it do anything in set 2. I know it got some extra tools, but it just doesn't seem to have elevated as much as like.
It's just
obviously Droids.
The thing is, it's just a more consistent turn 3, right? Because if you don't see your destructive strength, you've now got the 3-drop Goku, which essentially does the same thing, right? Apart from it doesn't do it from deck. But yeah.
So the only issue that really like puts Gohan, like in set 1, Gohan would have been much higher than Broly. or it would have been on the same level as Broly, like in the top tier brackets. But the only issue that we have with Gohan now is it is very similar to like all the green decks, with them being slow. But the cost of having to use your Awakened Leader effect to sack off your energy constantly all the time to keep defending or being aggressive is just not something you can do in the current format. They'll pressure you so fast that by the time you've awakened, you're not going to be able to establish a consistent form of ramp. And even if you are able to drop the 5-drop Goku, the Selku as we call it, it's very easy to remove nowadays because, like you say, God Kamehameha, or just being able to neg it multiple times. Beerus can kill it just by using one Gohan plus its leader skill. Like, there's so many ways to just deal with the good ramp cards in Gohan. It kind of feels a bit harder to play over the other decks. For example, in Broly being 25k base, you're not really negging a whole lot as long as you're able to like get maybe the odd ramp here or there, or even if you're not playing a higher cost type of a build like we were talking about. It's easier to stay on the low level. But Gohan, for me, I think it would be like top locals.
Do you think ahead of Frieza?
Yeah, because I still feel like
so.
I still feel like even if you would go like if you were to look at that matchup in general, I still feel like Gohan has the edge against the Frieza. Like it naturally is what it is because Yellow isn't exactly turboing out much. Not on like top Q levels or Kefla levels or whatnot.
No.
So Gohan in that matchup has the time, whereas in other matchups it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but
which is fair.
Locals.
Which is fair. And then we'll move on to Yellow Cooler. So it's actually quite funny because me and James, we were talking about this on Tuesday. I recorded a game with Cooler yesterday, I think it was, where I played Topu. It didn't even feel close. Like it realistically, at no point during that match did I feel I was actually in trouble. But I'm not taking that as, you know, when we're talking top tier players, etc. Obviously, things have to get taken into account at that end. But the ability to play those 4-drop coolers and just use your leader effect to just abuse their block capability, it's kind of crazy. And again, it is a 30k, so obviously it is possible to just kill it off of that. But it's really, really difficult for Topu to deal with if it's not just going to end their turn on that spot. I genuinely think Cooler could be Rogue.
I think
it's trash.
You think it's trash?
In my opinion, I would put it like, if I'm being nice, bottom locals very much solidified in trash.
All right, fair enough. Top end of trash, bottom end of locals.
Just for the sake, it's alone trash.
Yeah,
it's not going to be alone because this is 100% going with it.
Oh yeah,
we can skip like a good 2 minutes talking about Ginyu. It's bomb.
Yeah.
It got a card that buffs up to 25k for a couple of battle cards. What to do? Right, let's move on. Anyway,
yeah.
now we're going on to blue. So Goku Black, obviously James, you played a lot of Goku Black in set 1. I really enjoyed the deck. I just, for me not being that great with blue in general, especially in set 1, it was very like in set 2, you get a little bit of leeway when you misplay with blue. I would say not to the extent where you can get a free win or whatever. But when it comes to set 1, any mistake in blue was catastrophic, more or less, and I could never get Goku Black in particular to work for me. Where do you think on the ladder is in set 2 now?
Personally, Rogue.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
I've had a few builds where it just felt ridiculously good in the Topu.
Yeah, we played the matchup several times. Yeah,
it's nearly there. Do you know what I mean? It's like a couple of more cards or maybe a couple of tweaks here or there. It can do things. It is the biggest thing about it is that you like Beerus. Beerus can sit there and just swing the crits. It doesn't really matter about the cards that it's not drawn because the card pool in red is so strong.
Yeah.
Goku Black needs the Mize to get to 4 life, so it needs to quickly awaken, which gives the red decks access to, you're already on 4 life. Sound. Here's my 25s. So it's very, very hard to manage that. And a Sinister Tickle doesn't get you out of trouble that quickly.
Yeah.
But it's nearly there. I'd still rate the deck.
Yeah. I agree. I think I've played Goku Black a few times on the client. I've not actually built it physically yet. But I really enjoy how it plays in set 2. I actually really like how it plays. And because of Blue's card pool now, you can really test the limits of the build, where you can, I was looking at that, I think it's like a 3-drop extra card, where it's like, you pitch a Zamasu and a Goku Black from either the field or from hand, you draw 2, and then you play the Zamasu level 4. Like, I was like, for 3 energy, this is a great card, but I'd never ever considered it, and then I tried it, and I was like, yeah, this is shit. It's just not as good as I thought. It's just theory crafted, and I was like, yeah, it's just, no, for me. But yeah, I really like Goku Black, I do rate it.
Yeah.
And then for Trunks, for me personally, I actually think Trunks is rogue as well. I think its control capability is ridiculously good.
I think I would disagree.
I think its ability to
which
just
way?
I would say
I
would say could top.
Yeah, same. I was going to say.
Yeah.
I actually think it's higher than
top.
Vegeta. I actually think it's higher than Vegeta.
Really?
Yeah.
Fair
The
enough.
Vegito 3-drop makes Trunks' leader skill insanely more valuable.
Yeah.
Trunks in set 1 really only gained value by bouncing its own cards to its own hand and just constantly repeating the abilities.
Yeah.
For example, like the 3-drop Trunks into yellow, into green, just bouncing the 5-drop Goku. That was really, really nice. But now when you're playing Vegetos, any 4 cost is now a 3 cost. It's removable.
Yeah. And
most
you've got to
cards...
keep in mind Mai as well.
Yeah,
the
it's like
1-drop Mai is really good for that leader as well.
I agree. I feel like Trunks is definitely up there. Like the tools that Blue has, like we say, we can kind of like apply that logic to the majority of all the leaders that we've spoken about already. But I think everything that Blue now has is just really, really good. And it can play everything that Goku Black has as well, like for example the sickles, or at least all of the generic stuff to answer red. But just having that added effect on the leader just allows you to just keep going.
Yep.
Yeah. And I agree.
I really rate the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did say this, I'm sure to you as well, both of you, that in set 1 I felt that Trunks, as far as the blue decks went, was probably the most future-proofed in the sense of it will come good at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely came good in set 2, and you've got to bear in mind just how much better it could become. Because if Blue's gimmick is going to be a case of we're reducing battle cards' power or like energy cost, then it depends. At some stage, you could get a card that's like reduce the cost by 2, reduce the cost by 3, or whatever. And it's at that stage, Trunks just gets ridiculous. But yeah, I would agree. I would have said definitely up there. I think that all blue decks are up there, but we need to test it to agree whether or not I think it's better than Vegeta. I agree for a control deck it's better, but I actually like the aggressiveness that Vegeta brings compared to Trunks. But I suppose that's just my type
Trunks
of play.
can't be aggressive.
Yeah, Trunks can be aggressive, but
because Trunks so the way I like Trunks better is that Vegeta has all of its like Bulmas that buffs Vegeta's. Trunks has its own cards that does that, but Trunks has way more access to Vegeta cards to also use the Bulma cards. So it's getting double buffs. It can use both of them engines in the same deck.
I suppose actually that's a good point. I never really thought about that. I think the one issue that I had with Trunks in set 1 was that because it was a draw leader, and if you were running Mai's, for example, like a lot of people at the time would be like, "Oh right, so Mai's got that secondary effect which everybody forgets about, which is if you've got 7 or less in hand and you bounce a card back to hand, you draw, right?" Everybody forgot about that, but I always found it in set 1. Whenever I got to my Awakened turn, I was at like 13 in hand, 12 in hand, and I'm like, as a blue deck, this just felt so unnatural, because 90% of my hand was if you have 7 or less, and I'm like, it didn't feel great.
So, I've got a nice Trunks build which doesn't rely on any of the 7 or less cards, really.
Yeah.
Or peel-offs, which is only a get-out-of-jail card, really, in late game, where you can build Trunks without having any of the whole hand stipulation stuff.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
Fair enough. Maybe have a discussion and look at that. Let's move on to Red. I love Red U7 this set. I think Red U7 is ridiculously good, and obviously James, you talked with U7 in Birmingham over the weekend just passed, or the week before that, sorry. But in set 2, that 1-drop Frieza is ridiculous value. Like 1 energy, 25k. Like, oh, like I've seen people who play the client. I've watched videos online and stuff where I've seen them running the TN build where, you know, they tap 3 for the TN, then it plays all the weenie TNs, and then it's just slaps. It's just on repeat abuse, right? And I'm like, that's completely fair, but the 1-drop Frieza, for me, is just the value that brings. Like, I'll just go for 1 damage, 1 poke damage, just on repeat constant. Let's just keep draining their hand. Once you're on 5-6 energy, like, it can get ridiculous. I think it can get really, really stupid with how aggressive this deck and this leader is now. I would put this as good top.
Yeah.
Say as much as I want to say it could top, again, it would have to have such a lucky run. For me, it's top of Rogue.
You think it's top of Rogue?
Top of Rogue.
Yeah, as much as I want to say it could top. I think Rogue kind of implies that if it has a really good run, it could top, but it would have to have that matchup because it is gatekept by the other 2 best red decks.
Yeah,
I can kind of
Which
say
is
that.
fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Corie.
No, I was just gonna say like I can't really have any input on that. I haven't really played much of the Zoroku or U7 Goku deck itself. Obviously, I've played against it many times, but not much of set 2. So I'll have to check James's opinion. on that.
Well, we've played the matchup. I think Zoroku's probably my favourite leader to play. I love it. But we've played that matchup, me on U7, you on Topu, and you can always tell it's like a turn or 2 behind with what it can play.
Yeah.
Like, even with all of the spam, which is, you know, ridiculously fun.
Yeah.
But it's always like, crap, man, I'm 10k off, or, you know, like it always has that, because it doesn't have the luxury of going for the board and life. It's life or board, but then your guys are really small, so Top Q can just be like, yeah,
minus 15, minus 15, minus 15,
Yeah.
on repeat. Yeah, I think that's fair. For Beerus, for me, I was going to put Beerus at the top of Could Top. I don't know whether you still think it's better than Trunks, but I definitely felt that Beerus was stronger than Vegeta, for me personally.
Yeah.
I think Beerus sits at top of the Could Top. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think there's a deck that you could put higher than Beerus in that category.
I agree. I genuinely do agree with that. I think the 2 red decks, obviously, which we're going to get to in a second, everybody knows what the only tier 0 deck is going to be here. But between spoiler alert, but Beerus, if Top Q didn't exist, right? Let's just say they came out with random generic insert red leader here. Beerus would be ridiculous this format. It would be absolutely ridiculous. It's just it does very well into Top Q as well, just because it's like, well, I'm just not going to awaken you, and I'm going to control you out the game until I'm ready to finish you off. Like, it can really stall out a game very well if you play it right. I personally with Beerus, I can't do that kind of matchup. I'm sure you both know from playing me, I am such an impatient player. I can't sit there and just pass. I have to do something. Like, it really bugs me.
Well, that's one of the things that I've brought up many times with this, like with both Beerus and Top Q, is in my eyes they are both the exact same deck, no matter how you look at it. It just depends on the pilot's playstyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're more of a
I would still say that Beerus is the control deck and Top Q is the aggro deck. Like, I would...
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
if you are not, as you say yourself, you're not much of an impatient player. You always want to be doing something. Top Q is the deck for you.
Oh yeah.
But if you're the type of person who's like calm, practical, knows how to do things, likes to plan things out in like turns in advance and whatnot, and just everything, like, sees everything for the way that you built your deck and the way that you want to play the deck, I think Beerus is the deck for you. Because, like we've said, me and James have tested the matchup as well, and it's fairly even. It's like we say, it just depends on your own playstyle. Because me and James have tested the Top Q mirror many times, and for him, it just doesn't seem to work as well as Beerus works for him. There was very few games that James won when he was playing Top Q, when I was playing Top Q, but the moment he switched to Beerus, the games became a lot more difficult because Beerus just fits his playstyle more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beerus is definitely the way our players suits Beerus, or the other way around. Like,
Definitely.
I think as well
Beerus
the
awesome.
one issue that crit leaders always has is going first, right? That is always a pain. Whenever I played Beerus, it was always right, well, crit leader going first constantly, like on repeat. The one time I'm winning dice rolls at locals, and I'm like, are you kidding? Every time I'm on Beerus. But like, obviously, crit leaders. I actually like the way that they've built crit leaders for Fusion World, where it's not a draw and you gain the +5. So even if your opponent's awakened, you get that. The attack is definitely a threat, no matter what. But I think as far as playstyles go, you've hit the nail on the head there. I am not I wouldn't even say I'm not a control player. I just think that as far as red decks go, red in every card game I've played is an aggro deck. Having a controlled red deck is I just want to hit people, right? I'm Scottish, leave me alone.
Understandable.
But like when I'm playing blue, I understand that I'm playing blue. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just I know that I want to be slower. I want to, have the tempo, like, or set the tempo to me rather than to my opponent. So it's like that is fair and it makes sense. With Beerus, I'm like, NEK 10, attack, and it's just that's the one thing I could never get around with it. But anyway, so that's the last of the set 1 leaders. So we're going to move on to the set 2 leaders. I'm going to start with Topu because it's probably going to be our biggest discussion point, and I think we know it's going tier 0, right?
I don't think there's any. Yeah, I was going to say,
Trash.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's not really much to discuss in this. I think everyone knows what this does by now. We understand how it plays, what it can do, the level of aggression it can output. It is just the top. It is the top dog.
I think one of my viewers the other day there, I think he had worked it out when it was at like 5 or 6 energy. It was something like for 5 energy investment, it was about a 16 energy return, like reward between like double Keflas and then into double Gohans and then into something else. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, that's a very good way to look at it. And I hadn't honestly looked at it like that, but I was like, the energy return to investment for Topu is fucking disgusting. It is the most disgusting thing I've seen in a card game that I've played. But then again, I'm not a massively experienced TCG player, so I'm sure you're sitting there going, seriously, this is the worst you've seen? But it's so ridiculous for the type of card game that Fusion World is, where there's realistically not a lot of interaction, there's not a whole, like, obviously we come from Masters where everything that you do, you have to think, okay, my opponent has an energy open, they have 8 cards in hand, how are they going to stop me from doing what I want to do? But in Fusion World, there is no way to stop you from doing what you want to do realistically. So they just do what they want on their turns, and it's so difficult to break this down. I mean, and then the worst part for me, the absolute worst part for Topu, is that the glimpse adds back a 10k. So they can just add back the Kefla if you manage to get rid of it, and it's like, oh, piss off. Like, it's so infuriating. It's just like, I will say this, like, I know that you guys have been at locals and even today just on the client. You have been blasting the mirror matches, and obviously rightfully so. If you're going to events, that's probably what you're going to see. But I can't sit and play Topu all day because it's such an infuriating match to play against. I don't mind it so much as a blue player. Any other color, I'd be like, I just don't want to play this. I really don't want to play against this deck anymore. But
well, that's what about though, isn't it? You're prepping for tournaments, so it's just the mindset.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Topu at the end because obviously we're going to talk about the state of the game and then potential ban list predictions. So obviously we know that Topu's probably going to be the target of the discussion there. So we'll come back to Topu anyway. We'll move on to Cell. So obviously, James, you said it was the best green deck. I agree. I think it's going to be a could top for sure. It probably already has at some point, but I definitely think it could top.
With how I've been playing it and built it, Corie experienced it today.
Yes.
For me, it's above Trunks.
So you think it's like second best on the could top?
Yeah, genuinely, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so the way that like James has built it and the way that we've discussed it every now and then is just if you come from One Piece, we've built it the way that Katakuri plays, or he has built it the way that Katakuri plays. It's like defend your life, and then the moment that you just get to like you get the cell game arena down, and then after that you just start dropping, like, you drop your first airdrop cell, it'll put you back, And then depending on how depending on the situation of the game at the moment, it's like, right, if they haven't got much in play, you don't really have to ramp hard. You can just use the field to draw cards and then charge to 6, and then you've got your life hands. You just keep going back up, and then you have to deal with the board. Otherwise, your board's just way too big. It's like 45Ks, 35Ks. It's, your focus gets taken away from life.
Yeah, I think I had like 13 life overall in that match.
I'm about to hit you from 5 to 3.
Yeah.
Like 4 times.
Yeah, I think he had. Did he have like 3 or 4 cards left in deck as well? So I was like, "Ooh, I could go for the mill here."
Yeah, I think
of course the cooler mill player goes to mill.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's like, why aren't you stringing with leader? I've got 2 cards left in deck.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I agree. I think Cell is absurd. I think it's very good.
Yeah, but it's how you build the decks right now. Like, it does suck that you have to tailor towards like a certain deck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you can do that and get your brain around it and be like Broly in my eyes, every time I see people on the sim playing like 8-cost Broly still, I'm like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, I agree.
Dead card in hand.
Yeah.
Do you really think you popping a card, like, and drawing a card is going to save the game? It's like, cut them from the list.
Yeah.
What's the 3-drop Ram card again? Like, destructive strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. That shouldn't be in any green deck right now. It's a dead card. If you see 1 on turn 3, cool. But what are the other 3? They're all dead. So it's like you cut them, and it's just about how you play in the decks.
Yeah.
And how you're managing the board. It's perfect. It's a great deck. If on the 20th, if Topu gets dealt with, I'll be blasting Cell the entire time.
Yeah, I'll be straight back to green because green just infinitely.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
on Tuesday.
Green just jumps straight back on top.
For context, by the way, I pulled an alt art Cell leader at locals on Tuesday because we're in the UK. We get our boxes on the 10th of June. At this stage, it's fucking ridiculous. But yeah, Corie is the resident green lover, so I pulled the. And you got the alt Vegeta secret rare, so we just did a straight swap for that. To be fair, but I honestly, I know that people have been saying that, right? That if Topu gets dealt with, green goes back on top. I couldn't disagree more. I think that yellow would go back to being on top because of the Vegeta. The Vegeta is a ridiculous card. Because you can't deal with it, and all they have to do is sit and defend their Vegetas. And if you're playing this Vegeta leader as well, it's nigh on impossible to deal with the Vegeta. And you cannot KO anything, and I'm just going to keep hitting you in face, repeat on repeat on repeat.
I don't think yellow goes on top, but it definitely climbs the ladder again.
Yeah.
Which I agree with.
Especially that Vegeta leader, because again, I'll talk about my build.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make the jump over now. So Vegeta for me is definitely. I don't think it's. I think it potentially could top. I don't see it on the same level as these 4. I think it's
Rogue.
It's Rogue. That's what I would say. I just don't know where on Rogue I would put it.
My personal experience, because I've never played droids and I've played everything else, it would be in between droids and Zoracle.
Fair.
Right. Okay. Fair. I have no input on that. I don't play yellow. I don't really know much.
I'm also going to do this. I'm going to move black over 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah.
So
James, I'll let you take it away with the Vegeta because I mentioned it in the video on Monday or Tuesday or whenever it was that video came out. That it was your idea. It was us. We were talking about it at locals, so I'll let you take it away.
Well, yeah. Yeah, essentially it's the same logic with the Cell. It's about looking at what the card pool is and assessing what you can play, what are realistically going to play. So the 5 costs, the 6 costs, you're not going to play them. Like if you're slamming down that 5 cost to lock down 1 card and swing double, you won't be able to combo on it because you'll need it for defense. So it's a 35k. Yeah, you get a super combo. Sound. They're not going to offense, you're going to use that anyway. And then you're getting 2 energy back. Right, fair enough. On the other hand, the Goku locks down 2 things for playing it and swinging, which is far better than a Frieza already. then you're getting 2 energy back from just that plate. So why charge past 4 if you're not playing anything higher than 4? So the theory was only charge the 4, 5 maximum if your defensive cards are at the 2 cost and one of the beasts. So if you know that you're going to need like 3 open energy for the defense, you maybe charge the 5, but you still want to play your Cooler, you still want to play your Goku, and then you get access to 2/3 energy back for your defense. And that's basically the theory. So I put it in motion a couple of times on the sim or whatever it's called, the online, and it started to really work. The digital, that's what I mean. And then I watched Blair's video the other day, and he put the theory into motion as well, and I was creasing the entire time. I was like, "Yep, this is exactly what I thought this deck would do."
I'm sorry, I think you were like, I was creasing the entire time going, see if this was actually a good pilot, this would look so much better. But I was laughing because I watched the video back as well, and I remember calling it out where I was like, just don't charge past 4, don't charge past 4. As soon as I go into my turn, I'm like, yeah, charge fifth energy, yeah, of course. And it's so natural to try and play. Like in the physical game, I think it's a lot easier because you have to physically interact and like sort out your energy, and it's very easy to just not do that step. But see on the digital sim, when it's just autopilot, charge. It was just I was like, I knew I was gonna do it. But yeah, I agree. I think after testing the build, just being able to lock down and then sit on your defensive side or the defensive capabilities of that leader in particular, and similar to what I was saying to you about Trunks, I think as far as leaders go, especially in yellow that are future proofed, I mean both Frieza and Vegeta have ridiculous abilities, right? Just innate in their text, but I think that Vegeta being able to offer you the allowance to just, yeah, I'm just tapping out this turn. I don't ever have to worry about my energy anymore because I'm getting 2 back guaranteed at the end of the turn. Like, it really puts in a lot of work for that. But I think I genuinely think that Vegeta will be very good if Topu gets dealt with. I also think that I say Topu. I mean, we're going to come to the ban list predictions or how we deal or how we address red in general. Which obviously me and you, James, we had a discussion about that on Tuesday in particular about one card, which we'll come back to. But we'll finish the tier list first. We'll move on to Zamasu now. Zamasu for me is one of my favorite decks this set. When I've been playing the digital client and I've been playing Zamasu, I absolutely love playing this leader. It's such an enjoyable game.
It's amazing.
It's so good. It's so good. I personally am going to say it's going to top, right? I think it would be top of Rogue, or it could top. I think the only reason why this is Rogue is because people will just get caught out by the leaders and just get caught out by good pilots. But for me, I think that the deck is ridiculously strong. I think it's so good.
I personally think it's top of the blue decks and it could top.
Yeah. That's the way I see it. I was gonna. You've made me think with the Trunks now, so I could argue that Trunks would maybe be better than Zamasu still, but either way, these 2 decks are ridiculous. They are ridiculously good.
Yeah. It's only because in the blue matchups itself, Zamasu has a much better late game than the other blue decks.
Yeah. Like
it can go the late game, it can go the distance against blue, against green, against everything else. Like so much better.
Yeah.
This is why it's kind of just edges the other 2.
Which is fair. And yeah, I just think that Zamasu, again, with people, myself included, right? I always said about Topu with the whole, oh, you've got to discard a card for this effect. I was like, see, over 2 or 3 turns, that's going to really add up. And then they went ahead and were like, oh yeah, well, here's a Kefla that draws on play, and it can play a Kefla that draws on play. And it was sitting there, I'm like, yeah, their hand size isn't depleting. And then even Zamasu, by discarding 1 card, yes, you don't draw on the leader side, but I think you can still get away with it for the most part. And I think when you're ever in the situation where you're having to use the leader skill, you're in danger of losing very soon, as in either the next turn or the turn after, or you kind of have to win on that next turn. And I think that running the poke build rather than going for like the 5-drop, I think that the 5-drop Vegeta is just not particularly good in Zamasu and Goku Black. It's still fine, I think, for Vegeta and Trunks, but I think that for Zamasu, I am a much bigger believer in playing just the 6-drop Goku Blacks, and we'll keep playing 4-drops and we'll just keep attacking into you for really tall, high numbers. But I really enjoy it. I love it.
Yeah, I like it. I like the gain in life stuff as well. It's for me whenever I've played Zamasu, it's when especially Reds try to poke you to that double strike range and you can survive it. Or let's say you're on 3 life and their last attack is to get you down to the 2 life to obviously like try and set up for next turn. You can let that happen, knowing that you've maybe got a Zeno in hand or a sickle or whatever it is to wipe the board and have the other energy to get you back to 3. And then you're back in that comfort zone of, right, you're not just shotgunning Ribia and you've got to now work for that life again. Yeah. So that's what I kind of like about it. But it
and
also
it's a
has the best
25k, meaning that they can't just attack with their leader and then go, right, well, I suppose unless they've got Android 17, but in the Topu match, Topu can't just swing at your lead and just look to trade life that way. Like, they can't just do it and expect an investment. Whereas, I think that Zamasu being a 25k leader for sure was the right choice. I think had that leader been a 20k, it would be trash. Maybe not trash, but it would be close. It would be like local steal.
Yeah. If it was a 20k instilled in draw, then yeah, it's trash.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. So this is the tier list. Before we move on, is there any shuffling that we think needs to be done here? Any tidy up?
No, I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, I like how that looks.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
This is upsetting, honestly. These 3 down here. This is just so sad to see. Yeah.
Like the Frieza, the only like the best build I've ever had with Frieza in the current set is to focus on like the Mega Frieza into the new King Cole, who's a double blocker.
Yeah.
And you just basically try to spam your blockers so you can swing with them and restand and then get the cheeky little kind of lockdown on the other Frieza. And it was like, oh, sick, yeah, I've got like three cards on board, I'm feeling quite safe. And then Red just goes, yeah, Beerus.
Yeah.
Fuck them all off, and I'm like, oh, sick, I've just worked 4 turns for that. Cheers.
Yeah.
So it's like, it doesn't, it's like the Goku, the 4-drop Goku feels nice in it, but obviously it's going to be a yellow staple for as long as it is.
Yeah.
But like the Vegeta Bulma stuff just doesn't feel nice because of restanding the battle cards. The Vegeta doesn't give them the protection. It's just in a really weird card cool spot right now. Yeah. And it does, because Frieza's like my favourite deck, I think, probably.
I think Frieza was one of my favourites from set 1. It took, because of the way that like our local scene worked. Obviously, I was kind of the dedicated red player. Corie was the dedicated green player. Then you played yellow. You played some blue. We had Cashew, who was also on blue. We had Jet, who played some green, some yellow. Like, for me, I ended up just going red because I knew I'd be able to get the cards from you guys rather than having to look externally. So I was like, I was kind of not like pigeonholed because I'm a red player in Masters anyway, so it kind of worked for me. But I loved, like, whenever I played the digital client, I absolutely loved playing Frieza. And then I liked playing it in the physical game. I just wasn't that great with the deck personally, but it's a different playstyle to what I kind of play with. But yeah, set 2, it was such a shame. Like, I honestly thought that when I saw the reveals of that 3-drop Frieza and the Goku, I was like, we are going to have so much fun. I am just going to lock the hell out of your board and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's true, you can do that for like 2 or 3 turns and then all of a sudden, you're like, fuck, I kind of ran out. But yeah, right, we're going to talk about the current state and then we will go on to ban list predictions. We'll try and wrap this up in like 10-15 minutes for the state of the game. I personally, and I know that you guys are on the other end of the spectrum, I hate this format. I am not a fan of there being one overwhelming, and to be fair, you could argue it was the same in set 1 as well, but I'm not a fan of any format that is just overwhelmingly one leader. That's just something I will never be able to enjoy. I know that set 1, I mean, the 3 of us, we went to Birmingham, right, for the set 1 meta. We all prepared expecting a room of 90% Broly's, but honestly, I think between the 3 of us, Broly was probably the least we've seen in terms of like for me, I think I saw 2 Broly's out of my, what was it, 6, 7 matches or whatever it was. James, you saw 1.
7.
Corie, I think you saw
I
what,
saw
3?
1.
2 or 3?
Yeah, I saw 1 and 3 Gohans. Gohan was like the overwhelming deck. Which I didn't rate Gohan in set 1, but apparently it is good.
Well, the main reason for set 1 was because Broly had a better match into the rest of the meta, but Gohan had a far better match into Broly than any other deck did.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I can kind of understand that, but like even set 1 having that issue of Broly being a pain, I never honestly felt like it was that toxic. Like Corie, me and you played this match a lot where I was playing red. I think U7 was the only red leader I really struggled to beat Broly with. But when it came to Beerus and Starter Coup, like, yes, you probably won most matches, but it wasn't like 80-20, it was like maybe 60-40 or 55-45 or whatever. Like, it came down to just matchup knowledge, and obviously you were very, very good. You had played green since the start. I would always rate playing someone like you as playing the top end of green players. Like, I know that you know what your deck does inside out, and as long as you have the cards in hand, like, you know, you're gonna beat me. It's kind of the way it goes. But I was never really that bothered by the set 1 meta, even though again it was overwhelmingly Broly. I was like, yeah, well, do you know what? It's getting a bit stale, but I could play literally whatever I wanted. Like, I could play yellow, I could play red, I could play blue to an extent. I could even play green myself. Like, I enjoyed the set 1 format, but this one for me just looks like it's set up to be. It's just going to be Topu all over the place. Like, if I walk into a room, I'm expecting to see. If I walk into a room of 100 people, I'm expecting to see 90 of them with red hair. Like, to me, that's just what it feels like. It's just there'll be the odd person who's going to be like, yeah, well, Ginyu was my favorite from set 1, so I brought Ginyu. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just. It's going to be those types of players that aren't going to be on Topu, or people like me where I'm like, I don't care how good Topu is, I'm not playing it. Like, I could not enjoy playing a format like that. And honestly, it did kind of drag. Like, obviously, you guys will know, you have been testing the hell out of set 2. My love for set 2 kind of 1 was hit because of the late release date, but now that I know what the format is, it's just not one that I'm going to enjoy, and I know it's not. But I'll let you guys talk because I've just spoke for about 10 minutes there.
Sure. Personally, I like this format. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's the tier 0 boogeyman, but you got to put it in perspective. Like you said, if you go to locals and all you're seeing is top coup, yes, that's not going to be a fun experience because you're playing for a couple of packs. Do you know what I mean? Like, like if anyone's try hard at locals that isn't going to an event, then you know what you're doing. But if you're expecting to go to an event, and you want to do well, which is, you know, we play card games for reasons. Like, of course, like you just smash the format, don't you? And yeah, me and Corie have been playing probably in the last like 2 weeks, probably about 200 plus games of the mirror.
Yeah.
Just absolutely hammering it to get it nailed down. And obviously we've been trying the Beerus matchup and just sell Zamasu. We've been testing the whole lot. But it's just because we want to be ready for doing well in tournaments. So that's where my mindset is, and that's why like I can ignore like what everyone else is saying. Like, oh shit, game's dead, gotta do something, blah blah blah. It's like, well, put it in, like I said at the start, put it into perspective. If 90% of the people are complaining about what's the format is, and all you do is play at locals, then yeah, you're probably going to have a bad time. If your mindset is, I want to do well, I want to win, I want to get all these prize cards, etc., then your mind switch should be like, right, let's just fucking play the best deck and go win prizes. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's always going to be a top deck. There's always going to be the best pick. The moment they deal with it, something else goes back on top. Like, it is what it is. There's always going to be the complaint about the top deck. And yes, I can understand that top Q is very much on top over the rest of them. But, I mean, I'm not really bothered about it just because, I mean, like you say, like, you just find it boring in the mirror match multiple times. But the thing is, you probably find it boring because you know what the deck does, and it's very linear. Like, I know
Yeah.
there's people in our locals who are like, right, this is what the deck does. You go turn 1, you play Roshi. Turn 2, you go Self-Awakener. Now turn 3, maybe you play a
Goku to
Pop
pop there.
Goku. Yeah, and then you probably just go turn 4. At that point, you should be awakened, or depending on the matchup, you just start tapping 1, dropping Keflas.
Yeah.
But the thing that me and James have done is the reason why we're not burnt out and the reason why we're not doing that is because we just dig it out and we try so many different tactics, so many different play styles,
Yeah.
so many different lines of play, using energy marker on turn 1, using energy marker like turn 2, turn 3, and whatnot. We found that Goku on turn 2 going second, very, very good for tempo. Like, it's just more or less getting the game down to a T and understanding
Yeah.
how you play.
Understanding every scenario that your hand gives you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in our locals, not naming specific names, they find the format boring because all they want to do is just play the game to like win locals. Like, it's more of a pride or like an ego thing,
Yeah.
instead of actually just playing it to learn how to play the game and get better. Like, when I play games, if I lose a game, I don't I don't cry about it or I don't do anything about it. I take all that information on, and then I'll be like, right, how did I lose? Where did I go wrong? Have I spotted where I went wrong? Like, every time I play a game, I'm trying to find something about the game that I can take and make myself a better player. Which is why I feel like even in a tier 0 format that we're in, I still find it enjoyable because I can always learn from it. So it's not exactly something that's going to be like, oh, it's tier 0, I'm not going to play it because it's a busted deck and I'm only going to see it. It's like, you're not just going to see Topu. Like, let's
Yeah.
be real. There are going
Like,
to be people who have that
Yeah.
mindset of like you, Blair. It's going to be like, it's Topu, it's a bet deck, I don't want to play
Yeah.
it. Fair
Well,
enough.
if I'm
For me,
going-
that's
Yeah.
the only thing is, right? So sorry to interrupt, but for me,
No,
the
no.
reason for Topku is one of the reasons why I don't want to play it. It's I'm gonna quote a Masters deck here, and you two will know, but obviously some of the viewers might not who haven't played Masters. But I played Trunks Cheetah back when it was first out. Now, first out, not obviously like the variations that came after, but your turn 1 was play a 1-drop. Turn 2 was put a 1-drop under your leader, awaken. You either went into honestly I can't remember, it's been that long now, but you either went into your 3-drop Trunks, like every single then your turn 4 was establish another Trunks or establish another Vegeta, or then turn 5 was like, right, okay, well now I actually have energy for cooler counter plus the 8-drop or whatever it was where I can get the triple strike through, the triple strike crit. Like the turns were so set in stone that it was actually a really boring match to play. Now the one thing that it was a boring deck to pilot, I should say. The one thing I would say about Topku from the experience I have piloting it, which obviously you guys have played hundreds of games, but I've only played maybe like 10 or 12 if you're lucky. I will say that it does change. It's never exactly linear. It's never a case of turn 1, I'm doing this, turn 2, I'm doing this, turn 3. Like, again, you're looking at very similar play lines, but you could be like, right, well, I have Cauliflower and I have Hit in hand. Hit's just generically better at this stage, so I'm going to play Hit instead of go for the crit and stuff. Like, you have decisions to make, whereas in certain matchups or certain decks where that bores the hell out of me. It could just be like my attention, like it could be my mind frame. I can't sit and play a deck like that. I know that Topku is nowhere near as bad as the Trunks Cheetah days back from what I was saying, but I think it's still linear enough that I don't enjoy it, which is why honestly Blue screams to me this set, because it's so versatile. Like Yellow last set I felt like was the very versatile color. And I think that, and even Red to an extent, like Starter Coup for me was probably the most versatile leader out the 3 Red, maybe Beerus. But I absolutely loved playing those leaders, and Blue is just the one that's speaking to me this set. Like, I really, really like the idea of what Blue is bringing to the table, and it actually has a really solid match into Topku as well. So like, I will sit and play the game. Like, I'll sit and play against Topku once I have all my blue stuff built, because I want to learn the match. You know, I want to just grind it out. But it's not a deck I would want to play personally, and it's not because it's like I'm not being that baby, like, oh, I'm not playing this, and people who do are like whatever. It's not that. It's for me and my own sanity. I don't think I could play a deck like that week in and week out. It's not built in me to do it.
No,
but yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
So I think as far as the state of the game goes, I think everybody. I think there's very much a line of, I'd probably say about 80-20, where 80% of people hate this format. and about 20% of people are the people that you guys and some of the guys in the community that we see in the Facebook groups where they're like, look, just get good, right? For lack of a better term, just put up with it. We need to move on. It is what it is, right? You've got to deal with it for the next 3 months or whatever.
I think get good's the right thing to say, but
no. But it's learn the matchup,
is.
like what you guys were saying. Learn the matchup.
Yeah. No, it's know what you want from the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well.
If like I said before, like if you know that you're just a go to locals player that had to go sit with the boys and fucking have a good time, yeah, you don't want to see fucking 5 top queues in a row because you're just gonna have a shit time. Like, but if your mind frame is going to tournaments wanting to do well, regardless of what deck you play, it's the same with every card game. If you're going to an event, you're playing the best deck. That's going to give you the biggest chance to win. So that's the two mind frames. It's just
or you play the deck, or you play the deck that you're most comfortable with. But the one thing that we will both have in common is that the meta deck, you will have tested that over and over and over again because you need to know how to beat it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's not about getting good. It's just about knowing what you want from the game.
Yeah.
Just saying, getting good wasn't my words there. It was just what was made in the community.
No, I wasn't addressing you. I was addressing just people saying that in general. The statement is so fucking cringe.
Yeah, and I agree. And I mean, it for me, it makes the toxicity in the community worse because when you go, like, if you go to someone instead of with constructive criticism, go, look, I appreciate that it might not be your flavor of the month, but for me, I actually quite enjoy it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you go out to somebody like that, they'll probably respect you and they'll probably be like, yeah, fair enough. And you might even actually turn their opinion. But when you start typing "get good scrub," like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's like people are going to be like, do you know what? You've made me hate this even more. It's like it's just it is what it is. But we'll move on because we're now at just about an hour. So we'll try and wrap up with the last 10, 15 minutes of us talking about ban list predictions or errata predictions or whatever we think may happen. And what I'll probably put in there as well is what we think that Bandai need to do to balance the game.
Yeah.
So I'll start just because one of the things I'm going to mention, James, which is just going to be, I'm going to use it as mine, but I know that you've got other ideas as well. We talked about it on Tuesday, that the 1-drop Roshi Self-Awakener, no matter the red deck, is toxic as hell. It is the toxic consistency piece that leader needs, or that any red leader needs. In Topu in particular, it's ridiculously strong when you look for that Ribrianne turn. But yeah, I genuinely think if you ban the 1-drop Roshi and you just take away their 1-drop Self-Awakener, they have so many turn 1 plays anyway between the Piccolo, between the Basil, between the Whis, for example. Like, they have so many very, very useful 1-drops that you're not really taking a whole lot away. All you're essentially doing is probably taking away, because if you look at green, you look at blue. I don't know if yellow has one. I don't think it does. But like, there are so many ways now for us just to kill your 1-drops, right? So if you turn 1 going first and you have the Master Roshi, I'll just tap 1, play Kami, or I'll tap 1 and play Zamasu, and that one particular Roshi is now gone, right? So we don't have to deal with that again. So it slows your deck down slightly. But if you were just to not have that at all, I genuinely think that as far as red decks go, it's a big enough hit that it slows you down and it lets the rest of the decks catch up to an extent.
Yeah,
like, I think
it gives you that turn.
Yeah,
it really does.
And I think that's probably for me the best way. And with Topu being an Awaken at 3 leader, it maybe hits Topu a bit more than it hits the other red leaders. But I still think that you're right with that. I think initially I had my comments on the 4-drop Kefla and how they could balance it, which obviously me and Corie talked about before you joined. But I would much rather see the Roshi get hit, I think, personally. And I think that it brings the deck's power level much more in line. And it makes it not as quick. And it just kind of makes it as quick as the other red leaders, right? And I think that that's the thing. I think that Beerus, Starter and U7, they are only as quick as their energy cap allows. Whereas if Topu can speedrun their Self-Awaken, then, turn 4, the world's their oyster, basically. They can just do whatever the hell they want with you. It's just playtime. And I think not having Roshi stops that. But
yeah, I think Roshi going hinders Topu a little bit. It hurts Beerus the most, and I think Zoroku could probably live without it. You play I think Zoroku you play hits and stuff still.
Yeah.
And then it opens up space because then you won't need the extra cards and stuff. Well, I think Roshi needs to go. It is the biggest problem card, like outside, even with Kefla in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably the easiest pick of them all.
Yeah, but even if you figure Masters, do you remember Corie? You'll know because you didn't play early on, but do you remember when leaders were just draw card and you had to awaken by your opponent?
Yeah.
And then they brought when this card attacks, take a life and draw cards.
Yeah.
And if you weren't playing one of those leaders,
Mm-hmm.
you win in the game.
And
then Roshi gives basically that access to all red leaders. It's essentially the same thing. Take a life and draw.
And it has its other effect as well. Like, which, to be fair, when you're running the searchers, like the U7 and the U6 extra card search, like, fair enough, that's the only thing you're going to do on the earlier turns. But what I was saying at the beginning there about the rebrand turn is you tap one, you play Roshi, you take a life. You've got a 10k on board that just reduced the glimpse to a 1 cost that then also just took a life, and that could also be a 5 or 10k, or maybe it's something else, right? But Roshi's capability in that late game is, don't get me wrong, its early game is ridiculously strong, but in the late game, it can literally be the game winner. I think it's so strong. I think it's ridiculously good, and I think you're right. I think if you are going to balance red, I think kneecapping their capability to self-awaken, because you've got to look at how many they have, right? Between Cauliflower, between the hit, between the 3-drop Goku, the 3-drop Gohan now, they have so many ways of self-awakening that I think it's fine. I think if you can slow them down by a turn, or maybe 2 at most, I think that red would still survive and it would still be very, very viable. So what I was saying there about the 4-drop Kefla, I mean, we spoke a while ago about removing Kefla's permanent and making her a 25k. I would hate to see that, just because the text on the card, like an errata to the text on the effect is fine, but having to just go, oh yeah, this is actually a 25k permanent now, remember? Like, it's when you see 20k on the card, it'd be very annoying. So I don't think that they will do that. I don't think they'll hit the Kefla. I think if anything, they'll maybe hit the leader itself, and it'll maybe be limited to, and if they do it this way, they kill the Gohan promo. But they could limit it to 3 or less in Tournament of Power. So 3 or less, Tournament of Power, and 20k or whatever. But it just means that you cannot target the Kefla, essentially. That's probably the only other way. But likewise, I also think if you hit it like that, I think Toku just becomes slightly worse than the other red decks, in all honesty.
I like, for the Kefla / leader problem, I like what Chris did. What's he called? Uni XTCG, I think he called Chris Spencer.
Oh yeah, the US.
Uni X, yeah.
He's a good lad.
He's good. He did the ban list, errata list predictions, and I really like what he put forward, where it was you pay 1. So the leader skill anyway was pay 1, discard a card, reduce the next tournament power with +4 left, so whatever it is, by 2. Instead of pay 1 for the card, you reduce the cost of it by 2.
So it would make it.
So the Kefla, the 2 cost.
But it would be 3 energy in total, though, because you would pay for the leader skill.
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
You'd pay for the leader skill, and you'd make the next card reduced by 2. So then it's like you're reversing the Kefla by not being a 1 cost. It's now a 3 cost, which I think's way better.
I mean, it makes sense. To be fair, yeah, I wouldn't be against that. My thing though is that if you do a change like that, like, yes, fair enough, you get to play her out for 1 less energy, but I would far rather play Beerus as a leader if that was the case.
Oh yeah,
maybe even start her
exactly. That's a good thing though.
It is, but I think it just kills the leader though. Like,
No, I don't
Well,
think so. I don't think so. It brings it down to the level that everyone else is asking it to be brought down to.
I think it brings it
Without,
past that level though. Like I think
nah,
that's
it would
too
still
far
be.
on the other
it,
side.
no, it would still be played. It would definitely still be
Yeah.
played. 100%.
Still
I would.
getting a cafe arrow
Yeah.
for one less energy is still way better and still more efficient than getting, like,
Yeah.
than paying four for it. Do you know what I mean? In every other red deck, it just gives like Topu its own gimmick of reducing the cost of something, but just not by 3 energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
reducing it by effectively 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've also
Yeah.
got to
Still
take
has
into the only way that deck would then be like crashed is if they did both that and banned Roshi. Like
If they
if
did
it was
both,
just
it would be
yeah, then fair
catastrophic. I
enough.
think.
For red
For
in general,
Toku.
it would be.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it would only really be for Toku because obviously it's just the leader skills the other end of it. But yeah, I think if they hit both, Toku would be not unplayable, but I just think it would be.
Yeah, it would be a lot harder.
I don't
but,
know. I could never argue why I would play Toku over any of the other red leaders. That would be my thing, and it would be yes, I get to play Kefla out for 3 energy, but it's like, yeah, but mate, it's turn 8 by the time you get to do that because your opponent's chosen not to awaken you. Like, whereas, do you know what I mean? Whereas,
Not
like,
really. You still got
No.
Krillins,
yeah,
You
but,
you've got a plethora. You've got the Goku. Like,
but realistically,
we
you're only getting one a
me
turn,
and
though.
Corie tested it when we just played without Roshis. We just took
Yeah.
them out of the deck to see how it was. It did genuinely just slow it down by a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it wasn't like, oh crap, the deck can't work now. It's just it let work have that little extended turn.
Yeah.
So it won't kill it. It just would really help with the consistency that it has.
It would also be, I think, in my opinion, I would like the Roshi to be gone more than the leader
Yes.
skill.
Yes, I agree. That
Pers-
is me. That's my number one prediction. Or,
Yeah.
or hope.
It's
is
not
that.
so much as just Roshi being a busted card. Yes, we've already talked about that as like, yeah, it is a very, very powerful card and whatnot. But the majority of the top Q mirrors are just charge an energy, play something, no swing, pass. Whereas now that Roshi, if Roshi worked to just get the hit and just go, it allows you to be able to freely swing with your leader without being like threatened of like, oh, he could potentially like take 2 life on his next turn. It's like at most he may take 1. So it allows you to begin to see more options, which it doesn't like hinder the fact that you're not awakening now because you're still going to be swinging in these matches now because you need to draw into your pieces. So yeah, I feel like the safest bet, in my opinion, would be Roshi more than any other card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And in all honesty, the only other card I would have ever said before set 2 that needed addressing was going to be the 8-drop Broly. But like we were talking about earlier in the video, I think that if anybody's still running the 8-drop Broly, you're insane.
I
so
would
it's
have said Pilaf. I would have said Pilaf.
Pilaf is fair.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, Broly was fine. Like Pilaf was annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
I would never have said
Yeah.
Broly was fine. I mean, a draw 1, kill a card, and then two attacks was always ridiculous. Even in set 1, it was ridiculously strong. But I think in set 2, it does not need addressing. I think Pilaf probably does still need
it's
addressing.
fine now.
Yeah, I think it's alright.
At the moment, it's fine. As the game
that's
stands.
yeah, and I'll say that for now it's okay. Come ask me again in 3 months, and then we'll see if it's still there.
But as it stands right now, the only thing I would want with peel off is that fair enough, keep it in the game. And I don't really like erratas, but it needs to stop adding itself back because that peel off loop is obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's completely fair. Like being able to add back Final Hope slashes or just any of the Earthling 1-drops, I think that's fine. And I agree that if you were to hit Pilaf, the only way I would hit it is by saying an Earthling other than Pilaf, and that would be the card would be completely fine. I think that for this format and like the way that set 1 and set 2 have gone for blue, set 2 is obviously looking a lot better for blue now, but without the Pilaf loop in set 1, blue was unplayable for sure. Like just that's it. It was just not going to work.
It was like its only advantage engine.
Yeah, it was its only way to win matches, and like that was it. But when you look at set 2, it has so many tools now that maybe you could get away without it. But at the same time, I don't think that Pilaf offers enough of an advantage in this format to warrant a ban or warrant even the errata just now. But
No.
we'll see what happens.
Zamasu's the biggest abuser of peel off loop right now. Being able to stay at high life as long as possible by literally looping the peel offs.
And the one drop trunks. You peel off into the one drop trunks, and then that's your turn 2, and then the next turn is just peel off into trunks. And then it's just you just keep that cycle going on repeat, and it can get kind of ridiculous. But my big concern for this ban list is that they are going to overhaul a lot. My concern is that they're not just going to go, okay, well, we're addressing Topu, here's how we're doing this. My thing is they're going to go, right, for blue, Pilaf is toxic, let's hit that. For yellow, I'm trying to think, I'm just throwing this out there as a random one. The one drop freezer that rests a battle card and is a 10k, that's toxic. Let's change that one. Like, I hope that they don't just throw cards under the bus for the sake of looking busy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I hope that's not what they do.
I think they'll be fine with it. But like in terms of like the like rounding off like the whole ban list side of things, I think the only thing else that potentially could be done is not a permanent ban, temporary bans.
Yeah, I like the whitebeard approach to Topu.
Yes, they realise right the leader itself. We don't want to. Because no one likes erratas, no one likes changes, no one likes bans, but we understand that Topu is very oppressive.
It's too powerful for this.
It's a set 3 leader in a set 2 format.
Yeah,
let's ban it until other decks are on par with it, as opposed to neutering the deck just so the existing other decks can be playable. Just ban it temporary until the other decks are brought up to its level, until we get more support for it, and then take it and then bring it back when there is actually like a competition, like when it actually has like a rival.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've never played in a game that ever offered temporary bans, so I couldn't honestly tell you how I would feel about it. But I agree that you're right in saying that Topu is a leader, and I'm going to air quote here, ahead of its time, where it should have been maybe a set 4, set 3, depending on how the power creep progresses throughout the next couple of sets. But it is far too good a leader for set 2. That's the one thing I will say. And I think if you temp ban it for, I'm calling it a season, but it's a format or a set, whatever you want to call it.
Till August.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. Basically,
I think that would be fine. Genuinely, I would be all right with trying that out. And then once the new set comes out, or when the reveals start coming out, then maybe you can start to get an idea. Although that being said, the reveals for Fusion World are garbage, because we had NEK obviously create that document that had all of the unrevealed cards, and half of them were far better than the ones they did reveal, which was just a nightmare. But yeah, once you get to see what at least leaders are capable of in set 3, maybe you could then have the discussion of, okay, is it time for Topu to come back, or is it still maybe another set?
I think it's not so much of what the card pool is. It just not like what the power of the decks are. It's just there's not that many options in terms of deck building at the moment. It's still very early in its life to be able to say this is busted. It needs to be banned. It's like, what do you want us to do? You're only getting 50 cards a set for a color or something like that, or whatever it is. It's like, at the end of the day, there's going to be a top dog, and that's just because that color just has been printed better than the others. But give it 2-3 sets, then balance will come into the game. There'll be more options. There'll be more diversity in decks and their own builds and whatnot. It's the same. It's basically very similar to One Piece, where the early stages of One Piece, like set 1, set 2, didn't really pick up as much. But then when it got to set 4, that's when a lot of the prices started going back up, because everything started to level out in balance wise. There was a lot more consistency in the tops. It wasn't exactly just one deck. It was just the diversity of different decks were there. You could see different decks like Green Purple Buffy, Whitebeard, all that sort of stuff. It's not just how powerful they can make the cards, it's how many cards we have access to in the game. It's because when you look at Green set 1, every deck was borderline the exact same. Just,
you
you just switch the leader.
Do you want to know how correct you are with that? Is the amount of people on the online client I saw running the Android leader with the same. It was literally cut and paste from Broly deck into Android 17, and it was just I had a 30k leader for free, right?
Because there's not much else you can do. It's not much else you can do other than just playing droids. But if you play droids,
I played droids just because I really liked the package and I tested it and I really liked it. But I would still say the same package was better. Like if I was being honest, the same package was better. But yeah, like it's just funny. But I think, and again, James, you were saying this as well on. I think you've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. But it's the same as Masters, right? Masters were, yellow didn't really do much for the first couple of sets, or maybe it did a lot in set one, but maybe after that it just kind of fell away. We were talking about that, and you'll probably be able to put that better than I can.
Yeah. Masters, yellow did nothing. Red was around. Green was around because of the Broly set one. Blue had its Vegeta, and obviously when people would like mixing colours stuff, you had the blue-green stuff with like Starter Coup and Vegeta Crit. But then and then set 2, you still had the red. Set 3, we got the GT stuff, which was red. But then we had the veggie package, and then it got a bit daft because obviously everyone had Mega Freezer. So in set 3,
yes.
I was expecting a busted yellow leader in set 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was mainly that the yellow package itself wasn't strong. It was just the leader was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it wasn't a yellow deck. It was just a yellow leader, but it could.
Oh
it
yeah,
could
that
use,
was it.
like,
Yeah.
It could take like use objection, triple flash on like turn 2. it was insane.
It was incredibly aggressive as well. You had the 1 cost extra card that was just like give your leader plus 10k double strike. Nice and sick. I'll activate that for free. Sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of double strikes, Ribrian needs to do one and all.
My thing with Ribrian, right, is that it's only good in Topu. So I don't mind it because it is only good in that archetype. If you put Ribrian into Starter Coup, into whatever other leader, I'm sorry, but no. Like it just doesn't.
Solid in Beerus.
What was that?
It's a solid card in Beerus.
You think?
Fuck I. Like I would gladly like grind you down to the 2 life mark like usual with Beerus and keep him born at bay, get the 6 energy, slap 4, pay 4 for Ribrian and use the extra card.
Glimpse as well, yeah.
Yeah. It just it's exactly it plays the same as Topu basically.
Yeah, when you said 6 energy there, I'm like, or you tap 4 Ribrian, you tap 1 Roshi, and guess what? You've still got your 1 open for your glimpse. There we go. And
yeah, exactly.
And we're looking ridiculous. But yeah, no,
it takes a little bit of more setup and all that type of stuff, but it's still a crack card, and the fact it has 10k. If it didn't have any combo power, I don't think I'd be that bothered about it.
Yeah. My thing about
because
Ribrian,
it's also 10, it's like ugh.
My thing about Ribrian is that just because in Toku it can be played for 1, that's my only issue with it. You should not be able to have essentially. I'm gonna just throw out a number here, but it's essentially a 65k double strike for 3 energy. And that's because it's 20k plus the 25 from Glimpse plus the 10 that you add back, right? For 3 energy, 65k, come on. Like, it's ridiculously strong in a red deck. And then it's like, guess what? Well, I'm on 6 energy myself, so I've still got 3 to go. Like, I can still do whatever the hell I want for the rest of this turn. Like, you could even double Glimpse, of course. I mean, we've seen it, but yeah, I do think that Ribrian is toxic, but I think it's only toxic in Toku. And for me, the way to play around it is you just don't ever go to 2 against that leader. Like you just can't afford to. And then
easier said than done.
In this format, yes, but hopefully when the if they do address anything in the ban list, then hopefully they'll maybe make it a little bit easier. You never know. They might actually just go, do you know what? Roshi's fine. Let's just ban Ribrian. They could just do that, honestly.
Curveball.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's an uncommon or whatever it is, or rare, so like, people can hardly cry about it. It's not gonna, if they start banning Keflas, people will be like, well, look, it's an SR, I've got alt arts, whatever, like, you know what I mean? If you're gonna ban a card, a common or a rare, yeah, fair enough. Like, I genuinely think that for me, the 2 toxic ends of Toku are the early game awakening with Roshi and the late game finishing with with rebrand. For me, that's the two ends of the spectrum that I would happily see either get hit.
Right.
But yeah, cool. Well, guys, that's been an hour and 25 minutes. We'll try and wrap it up here. But yeah, so I think the tier list we nailed. I think the state of the game, I think everybody kind of just feels the same. I think it's, like I said, some people are worn out by it already. We're basically 1 month in. But again, we'll see. Maybe in a week's time, we'll maybe reconvene with a new ban list, and we'll see what happens. And we maybe put out a video.
Keep in mind for the competitive format, there is only one more bigger regional event in the EU in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, the Milan one, yeah.
It's the one for the UK and Leicester. Is that not before the release of Set 3?
But it is, but with the way that the releases have been up to now, it might just get the same treatment that Birmingham was, where that set just isn't legal due to shipping issues.
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I thought that the Leicester date was before the release date of the set.
Could be
I'm
wrong.
pretty sure Leicester has Set 3.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so you've got Milan in EU, and obviously there will be likely some in the US. I'd assume. I don't have the calendar up, I'm afraid. But yeah, I think I think it's fair enough. I think Set 1 they nailed personally. I mean, me, you, and Jamie talked about it on his podcast, where I thought that Set 1 they actually hit they hit a home run between all the leaders and between the meta at the time.
But did James really? Because he talked about One Piece 24/7.
I did talk about One Piece quite a lot in that video.
Legend.
Check it out.
Our resident world champion.
True.
Well, I
I'm
was
so
telling-
sad that there's no fucking energy markers in this tournament, kid. What the fuck is this bullshit? I just sort you boys out. Nah.
Absolute service.
Right, well, that was a surprise guest appearance at the end there. But yeah, so guys,
You should just change. Blake, you should just change this to not a video. This is a podcast.
yeah, I'm probably going to have to at this point. This is just going to be a podcast tier list / state of the game / ban list predictions. It's going to be all the
chatting
slashes in
absolute nonsense. But yeah, sure.
But yeah, well, I was going to say you two, but you three, I guess. Thanks for joining. Yeah.
The 1 minute warrior.
I would normally ask for shout outs, but we all play for the same team, so we're just gonna all do the same shout out to the same community, pretty much, the NEK guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So
Cassie from the UK.
shout out, oh yeah, Kashi from the UK, of course.
Aye.
The legend blue player that everybody was like, nah, you're wrong, mate. Nah, you're wrong. But yeah. Right, guys. Well, thank you for joining. Like I say, in a week's time, if they do a massive announcement, I'll maybe try and get us together again. We can just talk about what we think that's gonna, or what impact that will have on the meta, if any. But guys, thanks very much. I know that we've been here for an hour and a half, so I appreciate you giving up your time for this.
That's so good. So good. Anytime.
How about you?
Jack, I'm glad you're here for the hour and a half of. But yeah, right. Appreciate it all, guys. Thank you very much, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.
Great. Peace.